All right, so as you've heard, we have a variety of special interest groups. Uh, some of them are called SIGs, some of them are called TIGs, but they're all special interest groups of one form or another. So with each of our three workshop series, so we have this lunar science applications, which as I mentioned is focused on more kind of lander surface missions, landers, rovers, and surface operations. Then we have the Lunar Cubes workshop, which happens in October, and that's focused on CubeSats, orbital applications, and orbital science, and now asteroids as well, mini moons. And then the third workshop that will run the first one in November is called Scientific Opportunities in Cislunar Space, and that's going to focus on science, future science, creating the demand for new technologies and new missions. So associated with each of those, and ultimately we'll have as many as 2 or 3 per workshop on special topics. Right now we have 4 that are up and running. 4 that are up and running as monthly discussion groups. And we're going to have these orange sign-up sheets, so if you'd like to join one of these discussion groups and get the email and get on the mailing list to know when they meet. So they typically do a phone call once a month. Then there's an online collaboration site where you can post notes and questions and comments. So the 4 that we have running so far is, the first one is called Harness Cryogenics. So Greg Sharfstein, one of the original founders of Fletcher Engineering, who's a mechanical engineer and cryogenic engineer, is continuing to run the cryogenic special interest group, which includes a lot of either soon-to-be retired or recently retired Kennedy cryogenic scientists, as well as other folks. So that's for things like cryogenic bottles, cryogenic engineering, and a bunch of other interesting topics. Then we have the Central Florida CubeSat community, and that's Bonnie's group, and that's the local community, local businesses, Kennedy connections, and again focusing a little bit on CubeSat, but mostly like kind of like new space, new business in the area. David Dunlap's group is the International Lunar Geophysical Year campaign, so he's helping us coordinate and organize those people who are interested in getting into some of the political issues, the global community, and organizing the concept that in 2017-18 a lot of people should be talking to each other and working together. In order to do that, you've got to start now. So he and I are heading that up, and there'll be other folks helping as well. The Lunar Network SIG is Abraham Vassant's group. That's about creating a deep space internet, deep space cloud computing solutions, utilizing the assets that are already there. So right now, most people don't really notice it, but there are actually 3 orbiters at the moon. And in principle, if you had a strong need, they could have become repurposed to do something else, like communication relays. And LRO in particular will probably be less of a science mission. It has another 10 years or more, so does Artemis. And then, as I mentioned in last night's presentation, there's going to be a Russian orbiter, a Korean orbiter, perhaps an Indian orbiter. So there are going to be multiple assets and resources in lunar space within a few years from now. And so the Lunar Network SIG is about how do we utilize those, how do we create a marketplace of services that can be created out of that initially ad hoc infrastructure and then later a well-designed infrastructure. Pamela's group is called Lunar Cubes, Space, so small payloads, small packages, and advanced concepts for exploration. So the Space SIG, the Lunar Cube Space SIG, is headed up by Pamela, and many of you have already participated in that one. Down the road, we don't have the sign-up sheet out for it yet because it's just getting coordinated, but I'm going to be creating a Lunar Access SIG, which will be about launch opportunities, carrier platforms, different infrastructure issues about getting to the moon and around the moon, things that CubeSats will be tied to. That'll probably come out this summer, May or June. So those are our various special interest groups. As we said, and as you saw at the end of today's workshop, our workshops are about discussion, exploration, getting things done, not just coming to a workshop and not just going home and saying that was fun. So the special interest groups are a monthly way to interact. Like I said, there'll be kind of continuous discussion amongst the group members and leaders, and then there'll be a monthly phone call, typically with a 15-minute presentation and 30 minutes of discussion sort of thing. So it's a thing that you can plug into. You can miss meetings if you have to. And so it's intended to keep the interest and progress going in between the annual workshops. So we'll have these out on the tables in front, so feel free to sign up and give us, I guess, your name, your email, and your phone number, and you can join our special interest groups. So with that, I'll move on to Astrobotic. So Astrobotic was one of our first major partners. This will be their third presentation here at the LSA workshop. And they've made a lot of progress in the 3 years since I saw the first presentation. And we'll see a lot of progress in today's recorded presentation because John Thornton couldn't be with us, but we were able to get a recording. And one of the things about his recording is you'll notice there's a bit of an echo because Astrobotic is so busy, the only place he could find that was quiet was their new facility, which is a very large building. But it's a pretty good sound quality, but that's where the echo is coming from, is he really is in a big, large, open space. It's at about the size of a football field. So that's their new integration space. But so John Thornton has presented, like I said, last year, and we've spoken many times. We're hoping to, one of the things that's unique about the Astrobotic vehicle is their lander is so large, there's plenty of room for things like CubeSats. So one of the things that Panelist Group and some other folks are going to be doing is looking at getting CubeSat deployment boxes bolted to the Astrobotic lander, and how do we make it an ideal platform for CubeSats and CubeSat components. Last year when he presented, we talked about the idea of being able to deploy CubeSats at that 100-kilometer orbit that you'll see. They do a quick parking orbit. They can be bolted to the lander and probably dropped to the surface, or a few of them could be attached to their rovers, and you can participate in their rover experiments. So there's I believe, still a little space on the 2015 launch if you've got some instant hardware. But they like Moon Express. So we're going to hear from Moon Express tomorrow night as the evening keynote. And both of these are Google X Prize teams, but they have every intention of flying whether they win or not. They both have about 3 missions in the pipeline with booked customers, and every intention of flying all those 3 missions and then having a continuous pipeline after that. So we've talked about the lunar renaissance, the infrastructure of going to the moon, being at the moon, doing business at the moon is getting built already. Ben Bussey's presentation, that's a concrete tool. How do you design a rover traverse in the sunlight on the moon, anywhere on the moon? It's a tool that didn't exist before and that will exist very soon. A lot of the obstacles that used to exist about going to the moon are falling by the wayside. In the next 3 to 5 years, most of them will have. And so in the presentation I did last night, and I'll do a shortened version of it on Thursday for lunch, I talked about the lunar renaissance and the lunar frontier beginning in 2020. And Astrobotic is one of the companies that's leading the way through this renaissance of activity and will be an integral part of the infrastructure when reaching access to the moon is what we're all here talking about in a few years. So with that, I'll let Speed begin the recording. I believe John is going to be on the phone, so you'll be able to ask questions of him when this is over. So a 20-minute video followed by a question and answer. Thank you.